Alright everybody, welcome to the fourth week here over at the MMC Pokemon Draft League, where we're starting off with Caps Lock versus Legion. Honestly here, Caps Lock has been doing amazingly this season. They haven't played poorly a single time throughout the entire season so far, and Legion himself has been doing incredibly well as well. And now that they're facing each other, I personally think, at least just from what these six, what they have brought for their top six, I do think Legion has a little bit of a better matchup, mainly just because I think that Tera Heracross just clicks buttons into this team, to be honest. Like, both of Caps' best switch-ins, being Tinkaton and Landorus Therian, don't have reliable recovery, so they're really not switching in very easily. And even then, Lando T is not really eating Terra Normal Facades very well, especially with the Guts boost, even after Intimidate. I don't think it's going to be an amazing switch in for it. It can definitely slow it down and at least force a switch. But I feel like every time Heracross comes in, it's just threatening huge damage on something on the team. Galarian Slowking is a decent enough fighting type switch in, so hopefully they can pivot in and out of Tinkaton into Galarian Slowking easily. However, I don't think it's eating Facades very well at all, and that's just sort of like the whole thing. Like, Facade just goes super hard into their team. Even Tinkaton, I would imagine it takes less than half, but I would imagine it would take around like 30 to 40%. Unless it's, fully fizz def, I can maybe see it being along the lines of like a 30%. But at the same time, that is a facade stab from a Guts Heracross, so I am not sure how that Tinkaton is going to be eating that. If it's Rocky Helmet, I think chipping it down would be really solid. Jellicent has a really good matchup into Palafin with Water Absorb. Overall, I think Legion just has a very solid matchup here, though I do know Caps is an incredible player, so I am looking forward to seeing what both teams brought to the table this week. So let's get started here. All right. So starting off, we have Palafin, of course, to get that thing boosted right away, and Iron Treads. So, just getting that Stealth Rock. I respect that, as now they are going for just the raw Wave Crash. Okay, not going for any funny business with Flip Turn, as now we see that this is Leftovers, and it does just kill the Iron Treads here with Jet Punch, and we see that it is not in fact Choice Banded or Choice Scarf or anything of the matter. And now swapping as Zaru comes on in, Ogerpon taking a solid chunk and getting crit by U-Turn. That is rough for sure. And now Iron Boulder coming on in to threaten this thing out. Tinkaton is going to tank this pretty well, unless, of course, the Earthquake does 57%, and now that's a switch into Heracross that is going down HP-wise. And now, okay, going straight into Landorus Therian, taking a little bit of Hazard Chip. Do we see? Yes, we see Leftovers here. And now going for U-Turn, and no Rocky Helmet proc on the Jellicent. I love the nickname scheme on Caps' team. As we see, Jellicent goes for Will-O-Wisp on the Miltank, as we then see a double Leftovers with Miltank and Landorus, and actually Tinkaton. So that makes triple Leftovers on this team so far. As now it gets burned, Galarian Darmanitan coming on in as it gets Toxic. That's definitely not the best in the world. However, I don't really see many switch-ins here at all. Slowking Galar, it's definitely okay. Yep, U-Turn going to be very... That hit really hard. This might be Choice Banded or Choice Scarfed. I'm not 100% sure just from that damage. As now we see the swap into Landorus Therian, taking absolutely no damage from that Mighty Cleave, might I say. Going into Jellicent, and now this is likely going to go for U-Turn. Yes, going for U-Turn again, bringing in Ogre Flame, living on 5 HP. Now I do kind of wonder what the switch into this Ogre Flame is now. Going to be Zarude, trying to tank the Grass type move, and it tanks it pretty well, getting up a little bit more HP. Is this Choice Scarfed? We shall see. I do think that Choice Scarf Zarude is a pretty solid answer into this, as now they are likely, just gonna let this thing go down to the Scarf Zarude. Ogre Flame threatened some things out, though it was neutralized pretty quick. And now Garm coming back in to just throw off a massive hit. Tinkaton, that is definitely not going to enjoy a Flare Blitz or an Earthquake here. Going for Protect to get a little bit more Toxic Chip off, as now they just go for Icicle Crash. Okay, trying to predict a switch into Landorus, but that does not end up playing out, as now Tinkaton just barely survives and goes for the Play Rough to claim the kill on Darmanitan. Honestly, pretty solid play, bringing Protect and Spiky Shield on Ogre Flame and Tinkaton respectively, as now Heracross comes on out and just claims the kill with close combat. Do we see a Moxie boost on this thing? As we do see Moxie. Alright, so that means absolutely zero Guts shenanigans here. But I do think that this is a pretty solid week for Heracross still. Not very many switch-ins here, as now the Water Absorb Jellicent switches in on the Palafin. We do not see any coverage for the Jellicent, so Legion just needs to keep that Jellicent healthy, and then Palafin generally can't do anything to it. So let's just see. Going for the knockoff on the Miltank, which was also leftovers. So, yep, we see 3 leftovers for sure. Going for the Milk Drink, getting some chip. This thing is going to be a pain to break through. So he's just going to have to try and whittle his way down. Going into Zarude, I do think that bringing in Heracross would be a pretty solid option. I do know that Toxic would not be the best thing in the world on the Heracross, though I do think it just being able to claim some damage off on something. Yep, as he now brings in Heracross, does Caps go for the double Toxic? No, just going for Milk Drink. Does Legion predict the switch into Galarian Slowking, as that is what comes on out? Does he go for the knockoff? He goes for the Tera fighting into close combat. Does a solid chunk, but does not end up claiming much damage on the Galarian Slowking, as now he swaps out, kind of showing that he doesn't have Earthquake or knockoff for that matter. Personally, I think bringing knockoff at the bare minimum would have been pretty solid, though Earthquake I think was a very viable option as well. Going for the Protect on the Landorus to claim this KO on the Zarude. The triple Protect, I like, well, it does kind of make sense with Galarian Darmanitan there, being able to scout out for what it decides to lock itself into. As now Mighty Cleave does a solid chunk to this Landorus here, now that it's not getting lowered by Intimidate. But as now the Boulder goes down to the Earthquake. Alright, so let's just see what Legion ends up going on into. This likely is Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf Moxie. Okay, bringing knockoff. Yes, Choice Scarf Moxie Heracross. Going into Miltank now, as that is a solid switch in. Does not do much at all. I do think that the Guts set might have been better with these 6. I think it is a solid idea going into the Moxie Heracross angle, though I think with this 6 in particular, I think going for the Guts Facade variant could have been very scary, or even just a Tera Dark version instead. But let's just see what Legion ends up trying to do here, as now Jellicent is fairly passive into this Miltank, but being able to whittle down, doing 34%, that does a solid amount. Not enough to fully whittle it down, but it is causing it a little bit of anxiety for sure. Going for Milk Drink. Do we see a Protect as final move on this? No, just going to go for the sack on Landorus. Oh, and he locks himself into Earthquake now. I think knockoff was definitely the better option there, just because of the Landorus possibility. At the bare minimum, he got some kind of damage off. But at the end of the day, now this Landorus lives to see another day. And now the Miltank is just getting off another Milk Drink for free, as it's slowly still getting whittled down by the Jellicent. I feel like once this Miltank goes down, I think Heracross has the potential to just win with knockoff, as Galarian Slowking does not tank it very well, and Palafin does just get whittled down by the Jellicent, but that Toxic on the Jellicent definitely makes it less good of an answer to Palafin in the late game, as it's now going to be getting whittled down even more as Heracross comes on in, as Miltank goes for one of its final milk drinks, only one left here, and going for the close combat, claiming the kill on the Miltank. And then Galarian Slowking is likely coming on out. Oh, Palafin coming on in. Let's see. Oh, going for the close combat, risking the Jet Punch there. I respect it. I respect it for sure. Playing very risky. Now likely going into Jellicent here, as I think Knockoff should be able to claim Legion the win here. As I don't think Caps will be able to break this Jellicent before it goes down to Toxic. At the bare minimum, as we see another Protectmon here. So it all depends on this Heracross then, if it is able to break through this Galarian Slowking here. Does it have, okay, it doesn't seem like it has Slack Off on its own. Let's just see if this has Slack Off. I think it has an opportunity as he goes for the switch onto Heracross, risking the poison to lose him the game. That was definitely a very interesting, I say interesting, clearly it worked out, but I wouldn't have personally risked that. I think staying with Jellicent was free, especially considering that you know for a fact that that Slowking was just going to die to your knockoff afterwards anyways. So okay, claiming the knockoff. All right. Legion claims the dub against Caps Lock. I believe that shoots him up to first place overall. He might even be there right now. I'm not 100% sure. I'll post it up if that is the case. But at the end of the day, I think both teams played really well. I think Legion made one crucial risk of the game that would have just lost him, and that was the Sludge Bomb switch in there. I think keeping Jellicent in there was just free, especially since he was not revealing that he was Slack Off. So I think you just guarantee let Jellicent go down, and then you claim the KO on the Galarian Slowking into the chain kill on Landorus, guaranteed. I think that was just an auto win, and you switching in on the Sludge Bomb just had the shot of losing you the game if it poisoned you. So that is definitely one of the biggest well, that was definitely a very good game, is what I'm trying to say. I keep losing my train of thought. I apologize. All right, and let's get right into the second match here then. All right, everybody, welcome to the second match. Here we have Drees versus J-Mines. Drees has been on a pretty big losing streak lately, but I do think that they have the potential to claim the dub in this week. Not to say that J-Mines is not an amazing player, because they are in fact a very good player, though I think that Drees just has an amazing matchup here. I think Tera Zygarde has a very solid matchup. Nothing on their team really resists Dragon all that well, aside from Mega Scizor, which does not really enjoy tanking Thousand Arrows, especially if it is a Coil or a Dragon Dance set. I think that Zygarde, if played correctly, and just if the sets all match up, definitely can claim him the dub here for sure. And then even on top of all that, I think Iron Moth matching up very well into Mega Scizor, which is the best answer into Zygarde. I think those two together really threaten Jay's team. Iron Bundle has a very good matchup here, barring he lands his Hydro Pumps. Venusaur, I think it's solid. It's a very solid Infernape answer, and even a Araquanid answer for sure. And I think Milotic can do fairly well here, outside of maybe Appleton. But at the end of the day, that's a water versus grass type, so it kind of makes sense. But if Milotic is carrying Ice Beam, it can definitely threaten some decent damage. So overall, I do think that Drees has a very solid matchup here, but let's just see how this all goes. At the end of the day, you can never count out Tera or Araquanid, so let's see how this goes. All right, so for the leads, we have Mega Venusaur versus Araquanid. Okay. as now he just hard switches into Milotic as his main answer to this thing. Do we see a Marvel Scale? Okay. Do we see... Okay, we don't see any moves on the Araquanid just yet, as now Milotic goes for Toxic on the switch into Alolan Muck. Alright. Going for the flip turn, doing 0 damage. I don't know what the investment is on the Milotic. Ooh, that Crunch did nasty damage on that Iron Moth. Wow, okay. As now he's just going back into Milotic here. Maybe would have been a solid idea to bring competitive, honestly. As now Appleton comes on in. Going for the flip turn, doing, again, negative damage. As now they switch it back into Mega Venusaur. I do think a Sludge Bomb does do solid damage into this thing. So I do predict a switch into either Muck or Scizor, as they do not opt to switch. They go for Protect, seeing just what Drees can go for. As now Drees goes for Earth Power, predicting the Muck. And now they go for the Sludge Bomb. No poison on the Appleton. But the Apple Acid does not do much damage. It does lower the special defense, which does make things a little bit more spooky for some other mons. But now just going for more attacks on the Mega Scizor, on the Mega Venusaur. Going for Sludge Bomb this time. Is now swapping into Scizor. Does he go for it? He does go for the Earth Power. That's a solid chunk, not amazing damage, especially considering that Mega Scizor's defenses are pretty high, as now they go for Swords Dance on the swap to Milotic. I wonder, this probably eats, yeah. That Bullet Punch is not doing much damage whatsoever, as now Scald is doing some solid damage, and it burns too. So now Milotic likely going for a Recover now, as Appleton comes on in. Going for the Recover, yep. And do we see an Ice Beam on this thing, or is he just going to go for Flip Turn? As now a Araquanid comes on in, going for the Flip Turn. I think this would be a solid Coco answer, yep. And I do think that going for Volt Switch is probably the best option. Going for Tera Electric here. Going for Defog, getting rid of both the terrain and the webs, as now they go for Poison Jab. That did a solid amount of damage, but I do think that Liquidation probably would have just done more, to be honest. As now the Sticky Webs come back in, as Mega Venusaur comes back out, going for Sludge Bomb, and the Scizor is immune. Do we see a Roost here on the Mega Scizor? As now Iron Moth comes on in. Nope, just going for the Bullet Punch. But it does not do enough to put it into range, so now they have to just sack the Mega Scizor then, as they go for the Fiery Dance. Honestly, solid play, I would say, just mainly because, okay, this I think would be Scarf. Nope, it is just Vacuum Wave. Alright. Iron Moth going down here before Appleton goes down is decent, though I feel like now that Mega Scizor is down is not as important to have, as now Appleton gets flip turned on by the Milotic, and Tapu Koko comes back on out, likely going to try to defog away the Sticky Webs again, as now, just going for the U-turn, trying to predict the Araquanid. Mega Venusaur comes on in to tank a hit from this Appleton, as Apple Acid does 0 damage, but does lower the special defense. Do we see Infernape or Alola Mutt come on in? Nope, we just see a Protect, getting a little bit more HP back on the Appleton, as Drees goes for a Sludge Bomb, just going to try to click that damage, and now going to Muck Alola. Does he predict? And he does in fact predict the switch to Muck. If I was Drees, I would probably continue going for Earth Powers, to be honest. Ooh, if he went for Earth Power, or even anything for that matter, he instead goes for the swap. Okay, now Terrapago still has its Terra Shell ability, as now, Meteor Beam set. I love the Meteor Beam set. Does not do much damage to the Milotic, as now the Terra Shell gets broken. Very minimal damage, as Venusaur comes on in. Do we see a leftover? Oh no, we do not see leftovers, because of course this Terrapagos was Power Herb. As now Venusaur is just going to sit in front of this thing and just tank. Just going to tank every hit. as it now it gets Leech Seed up on top of it. This being a dedicated Terapagos answer, I think is pretty solid, as now he just clicks maybe I would have clicked Synthesis there, because now this is pretty rough. The main... okay, going into Milotic. I wonder how well this Milotic tanks this Tera Starstorm, and it does not, in fact, tank it at all, for that matter. Do we see... Okay, we see the Zygarde come on in, as this likely does not outspeed, as it goes for the Tera Normal E-Speed, and I think that might show that it is banded at this point in time. Banded Tera Normal E-Speed, I think, does solid damage into just about everything here. The Infernape, likely he saw that the Infernape did not die to the E-Speed, and would die in turn to the fighting type moves. So going for Heat Wave, definitely did not tank that amazingly, and now Iron Bundle coming on in with the lowering of the speed, getting outsped by the Infernape as it nasty plots. That's definitely very spooky. But Zygarde does in fact come back in, and it likely can threaten the KO now with E-Speed, as it does in fact KO with E-Speed. This Zygarde, I think, is in a very good position to clean up the end game here. Going for the swap into Iron Bundle, trying to continue to get a little bit more chip damage off on this thing, as the Drain Punch does a lot of damage to the Iron Bundle. It all depends on how much damage this Iron Bundle can do to this Muck. It does a solid chunk, as now the Drain Punch brings it back up to 61 HP, and after leftovers, it's at 67%, a solid amount of damage. And now Zygarde, it will likely just go for an ground type move if I had to guess, going for EQ, so not even Thousand Arrows, going for Earthquake instead. As now Appleton comes on in. Okay, that does tank. And the Leech Seed miss. That is pretty rough for sure, especially, well, at the same time with Protect. It might still be able to get it back up, but I don't think it'll be able to get it back. It'll be able to survive the follow-up turn. Okay, going for Apple Acid instead, lowering the special defense, but I think this is over now. I think the Zygarde does just claim the kill on the Appleton, and then the following turn, KOing the Tera Electric Araquanid. I think that Tera Water Araquanid could have potentially been better. I like Electric defensively, especially into Tapu Koko, though I do think that the having Tera Water generally is just better in my personal opinion. I think both teams played excellently. I think Jay, despite the matchup difference for sure, they played incredibly well. And then Drees, of course, bringing it back after being behind most of the game, and claiming the kills on Zygarde, breaking his losing streak so far. So we shall see if Drees can continue this. Hopefully, the streak of wins we can definitely see for sure. But that is the second match. Let's get into the third one. All right, everybody, welcome to the third match here. We have Mana Burn versus Renegade. Honestly, I think Mana Burn has an amazing matchup here, mainly just because I see very few things that are able to break a Tera Diancie, and I think if this thing gets going, I think that it could just sweep the game, especially if Corviknight gets weakened down. But if it is a Iron Defense, Body Press, Calm mindset with stored power, I think that there is very few things on Renegade's team that can truly beat that. Screamtail, I think, could be a very solid answer, though enough boosts and stored power is even breaking through Screamtail. So that is definitely one thing that I would definitely be worried about. But at the same time, I do think Renegade's Mons are fairly solid. Dragapult has an amazing matchup as usual. I think Greninja has a pretty decent matchup for sure, especially with Extrasensory for Tentacruel. Even if Tentacruel's special defense is insanely high, it doesn't get any form of reliable recovery outside of Black Sludge or Leftovers. So I think continuous switch-ins to that could weaken it down pretty decently, especially since that is one of the best switch-ins to Mega Lopunny, especially if it is physically defensive. I think that's one of their best answers. We see the Breloom come on out, which is pretty solid, I would say. Not my favorite mon into this matchup specifically, just because it tearing out of its quad weakness to flying is solid, but I don't think it really brings so much to the table, especially without Tera. Because if you're tearing Breloom, then you're not tearing Diancie. And I think Tera Diancie this week does have an incredible matchup, as I was saying before. And then Mega Pinsir is very good into Mega Lopunny. I don't remember if it outspeeds Mega Lop, but Aerialate Quick Attack does pretty solid here for sure. And Mike's only switch into Aerialate moves being Corviknight. While Corviknight is very good, Rotom Heat is right there in return. So let's just see how this matchup goes. I think both teams have very solid potential. I think Mana Burn's matchup slightly outweighs Mike's personally, though I do know both teams play incredibly well. So let's see how this all goes here. So let's see what these leads are. We see a Breloom lead and a Dragapult lead. Do we see the Spore immediately? No, we see the swap into Diancie, as now we see a Shadow Ball that does a chunk to this Diancie. I feel like if that is specially defensive Diancie, that might be Specs Dragapult. As we now see a Stealth Rock set from this Diancie, so it seems like this is a Hazard variant. If this is Defog Corviknight, okay, going for the Toxic on the Scream Tail. I think that is very good at potentially wearing down this thing in the future and forcing it to use its wishes up. As now Corviknight comes on in, likely going to try to defog if I had to guess, as now Tentacruel comes on in. I think Mike should definitely go for defog here. Going for Brave Bird, just whittling down this Tentacruel. Honestly, I respect that play too. I think once Tentacruel goes down, Greninja has a very solid matchup. But I do hope that he at least has defog. Yes, he does in fact have defog, and gets rid of those hazards from Tentacruel. Now I think that going for Brave Bird is the best option here. Rotom Heat is probably going to tank this. And we see that it is this Leftovers Rotom Heat? No, it is not. As now he goes into Arcanine. Going for Volt Switch, that does a chunk of damage. That might even be Specs Rotom Heat, to be honest. Mega Pinsir coming on in as now Mike switches into Corviknight. Going for CC, doing 27%. That might be physically defensive Corviknight right there, guys. And now going into Diancie, likely on this Brave Bird. Going for U-turn, getting the momentum. I like the idea for sure. As now Greninja comes on in, and Tentacruel is not going to enjoy tanking those water type attacks. If this is a Hydro Pump, okay, going for Surf as we see Protean, so no Battle Bond. Oh, that did not much damage at all. I think this might be especially defensive Tentacruel. Okay, Extra Sentry doing solid as we see that this is not Choice to Greninja. And no Life Orb either. I wonder what move this thing is. It might be Expert Belt with that damage on there. And now going for T-Spikes of his own. Interesting. As now Diancie goes for the Tera Fairy. Not tanking much from that Surf. Is now going for Mystical Fire, trying to predict the Corviknight switch. I like the idea for sure. I think going for Calm Mind or even a Iron Defense or Diamond Storm, something along those lines, would be good, but clearly he does not have it. Okay, going for... alright, Stealth Rock, Toxic, Mystical Fire, Draining Kiss. Interesting. I haven't seen Draining Kiss on who... That's a funny interaction. That's a very funny interaction right there. I like that. That's goofy. Going for Roost as now Diancie just continues to click. Oh, going for the Stealth Rock again. Does he just keep clicking Stealth Rock? No, just going into Rotom Heat as he goes for Brave Bird. This is... His switch-ins to Rotom Heat are getting surprisingly thin. As Scream Tail, I wonder how much Scream Tail takes from this Volt Switch. Ooh, going for Nasty Plot. That is not Specs Rotom Heat. That's just what Arcanine tanks from it. Wow. as now Rotom gets Encored. This is a pretty solid Screamtail set, but honestly, if I were Mana, I might just leave this thing in and continue clicking Nasty Plot, honestly. Going for the swap into Tentacruel as Arcanine comes on in. This is likely going to get E-Speeded and likely die, if I had to guess. Going E-Speeded and dead. Okay, that is the switch into Greninja. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what Mana's plan is when dealing with this Greninja, as now Mach Punch on this Breloom does not do much damage, as we see that it is Life Orb. Technician Life Orb, if I had to guess. Now going for a Corviknight here. Let's see what this does. Okay, going into Pinsir on the switch, as well as Corviknight. Ooh, okay. Mike is just reading Mana Burn like crazy right now. Going for the Defog as now Rotom Heat comes on in. I wonder what this thing... Okay, gonna go for Dragapult here now. Resisting all the attack. Oh, that Overheat does a lot of damage. Going for the Diancie swap here now, as he just goes for U-turn. Solid plan for sure, as now Greninja comes on in. Gonna just try to click Surf if I had to guess. Going for Toxic Spikes, okay. And getting the poison typing off to tank these Draining Kisses. Going into Screamtail now. I wonder if this is a Wish support Screamtail, as this is Stealth Rock Encore. It might be Wish and then another fourth move. As Pinsir comes on in, going for Stealth Rock. Okay, good swap then for sure, getting this Pinsir in before the Stealth Rocks go up. As now he just opts to go for the swap again, as we see this is Heavy Duty Boots Rotom Heat. As now the swap into Corviknight was fairly telegraphed for Mana Burn, as he goes into Rotom Heat. And now Screamtail likely as a sack, going for the Volt switch. Alrighty, going for the DOS. I wonder what this Dio set is going to be, as this poison is definitely going to whittle it down over time. Is he just going to go for a setup to try to win the game on right away? No, going for a Thunderbolt. No, with the Encore, I definitely can see where he is coming from for sure. And considering he does not switch into electric type moves very well outside of Dragapult, just going for that. And he gets the Para. Wow, the Hail Mary Para. I respect it. I respect it a lot. Does he go into Mega Pinsir then? No, he goes for Diancie instead. Maybe I would have gone into Rotom Heat, but he gets the Para, so claims the kill with Diancie on the Dragapult. They're both neck and neck at this point in time, though Mana Burn having the Toxic Spikes up alongside Corviknight still being there, I think could spell some pretty bad stuff for his team in the late game. Just getting whittled down by this very bulky Mon for sure that can't really seem to be broken outside of Rotom Heat, which just invites in this Greninja. Well, actually, very few switch-ins to electric type moves now, actually. So let's see how this goes. I think that Rotom Heat has a very solid win con here, as Diancie is just whittling down the rest of the team. As just clicking straight up Draining Kiss. Going for the Morning Sun on Arcanine. Likely going into, yep, the Corviknight. Does he just predict that going to Rotom Heat? No, going for the Close Combat. Honestly, I would definitely bring in Rotom Heat here for sure. Yes, bringing in the Rotom Heat, which is Boots. Going for the Brave Bird, not doing much at all, but now this is going to be huge damage on something. This Volt Switch is going to hurt. It's not going to KO this Arcanine, but yeah, it's going to do a lot of damage. And now Breloom gets to come on in and click Technician Mach Punch. It would be pretty funny if this was Poison Heal, but it is not in fact Poison Heal, it's Technician. This might be a sack. Yeah, sacking Greninja. Trying to go for the Mega Lop endgame, but this Pinsir still gets one more switch in. So he has to preserve the Fake Out on the Lop. Otherwise, then Fake Out, it does just claim the kills on this Mega Lop. Corviknight. Does this Corviknight live 2 Mach Punches? It does not live 2 Mach Punches. This is definitely spooky for sure, as I don't think, yeah, Corviknight does not switch in. It gets sacked. I think Mana Burn claims the dub here. Breloom goes down, but I think Rotom Heat does just claim the dub. Oh, Diancie even, yeah. Diancie going for just Draining Kisses, I think should be enough to just win, I think. Oh, yes. Arcanine getting chipped down here. Is Diancie in range of Megalop now? I think getting faked out into return might be able to seal the deal here. Yeah, I think Lop might actually win. As you see them talking about in the chat, I think Lop does just win here now. Getting that chip damage off on Diancie. Actually, wait, nope. Mega Pinsir comes on in. Ooh, the quick attack to outspeed Mega Pinsir's quick attack. That is some pretty solid tech there. As now, Close Combat claims the kill on Rotom. Very close match. It was back and forth the whole way, but Renegade does end up claiming the dub against Mana Burn. Honestly, I have no notes. That battle was pretty solid. Even Breloom managed to do his thing pretty well, spamming priority Mach Punches into the team. Claimed some really solid damage off on things. Greninja did not do nearly as much as I was expecting it to just from this matchup. Megalop just being Megalop. Pinsir, I think, was very solid here. Rotom did incredibly well once Screamtail and Dragapult went down. And then Diancie, again, just kept clicking moves. I think if it was a setup variant, that could be pretty scary for Renegade to have to deal with, especially if it was an Iron Defense set, or even like a Diamond Storm, or something along those lines, something to boost its defense. I think that could have potentially made him win in the end, because Greninja was never threatening the Diancie, and the rest of the team was physical outside of Dragapult, which Dragapult was doing a decent amount of damage, but it wasn't to hit KOing, and Diancie with Terra Fairy Draining Kisses would have been able to claim the kill. So I think, granted, this is all in a vacuum, and hindsight is 2020, but I think if this was an Iron Defense set instead of Stealth... Oh, no, I'd probably keep Stealth Rock, and then I would get rid of Toxic for the Iron Defense and maybe replace Mystical Fire with Iron Defense, because with enough Iron Defenses, you would break through Corviknight. So that's probably what I personally would have done, but again, hindsight 2020, you don't really know. Still, super close game regardless. I hope you all enjoyed, and let's get right into the fourth match then. All right, everybody, welcome to the fourth match. Here we have Cran versus Patty. Looking at it, honestly, I'm not fully sure about the matchup on either side, to be honest. I think it feels fairly even almost. Mega Gallade, I don't think has the worst matchup in the world. Like Overquill being able to switch in fairly easily, I think is okay. Like that's a pretty good switch in here. Terra Avalugg, I think, is pretty good into Mega Gallade for sure as well. Spectrier has a very good matchup here for sure, but then again, Overquill can do pretty solid, and it's checked offensively by like well, maybe not Iron Valiant, but it definitely gets outsped by Mega Manectric, and well, potentially Dragon Dance Zygarde as well. So offensively, I could definitely see it. Whereas on Patty's side, I think Iron Valiant has a very solid matchup. It doesn't exactly hit anything, like nothing resists either of its stabs here, aside from Spectre with fighting, but otherwise can kind of spam like fairy type moves fairly easily, I'd say. So Quagsire, I think, is going to be covering a lot of the defensive backbone on Cran's team against the Iron Valiant. But outside of that, I do think that Patty has an edge offensively. Ogerpon Wellspring does very, very well here, especially with Play Rough for Goodra. And I imagine Goodra is also his Tera Captain too. So I imagine Goodra has a solid enough matchup into Iron Valiant with the right Tera type. So it all just kind of depends on how each team plays, I'd think. So let's just get right into it with the leads. So we have Samurai Hisui, pretty obvious there, and main net trick. Okay, so that's going to be forcing that to swap into Quagsire. Very solid option. Going for the Mega right away into the Thunderbolt, as now Ogerpon Wellspring gets poisoned, toxic by the Quagsire now, as it's getting threatened out into Goodra, and going for Ivy. Oh, that is a big Ivy Cudgel crit for sure. That might even put it in range of dying to another one. That is huge for him for sure. Going for another Ivy Cudgel, doing a solid chunk to the Rillaboom here, as we don't see leftovers proc, so this is likely choiced if I had to guess. And now going into the Overquill, eating a U-turn. That did not do much damage, so this might be scarfed. And then we see Black Sludge on the Overquill, going for Toxic Spikes now. And missing a Ceaseless Edge as well. Poor Cran cannot catch a break right now. That really sucks. Going for a Razor Shell on the Avalugg swap. Avalugg is going to be tanking a decent amount of hits here. Now being forced out into Spectrier, who then gets poisoned by the Toxic Spikes. Body Press being immune. If I were Cran, I would go for a substitute here, and likely trying to set up some Calm Minds for a Draining Kiss. That's likely what I would try to start doing. Going for the Mud Shot. That is a sick tech. Mud Shot for the Overquill. But it only did 51%, so this is likely a range, and he lives at 1. That is really rough, as you see that he definitely got a low roll on the first hit. But now going for another one will claim the KO. So now we have the Zygarde, who gets Draining Kiss. Did not take much damage from that. Solid chunk, but not nearly enough. Spectre... It all just sort of depends on how this thing can answer the Spectre. Does the 1,000 Arrows? No, it does not KO. If I were Cran right now, I'd just go for the Draining Kiss. Getting the KO on Overquill now, as Patty is just trying to prevent this thing from getting any sort of health back. Pretty solid plan there. And now main net trick comes in, who will likely be able to outspeed and KO with a Volt Switch, if I had to guess. Going for Flamethrower. Okay, Flamethrower is a decent option as well, but letting that thing go down because it can't switch out and come back in because of the spikes, and he has no removal right now. Going for Woodhammer. Yep, that is a Choice Scarf Woodhammer right there. So did a fat chunk right there for sure. Now Avalugg coming back in as Goodra comes on in. Honestly, looking at it now, I don't see anything that really wants to break, or not necessarily that wants, but can break this Avalugg at this current moment. Going for Terra Fairy, trying to just do as much as he can to break through it. That did a solid chunk, but just spamming recovers as the Goodra slowly succumbs to poison damage. Oh, this is definitely rough for sure. Ooh, that crit is definitely pretty rough. But yeah, because that might even allow him to slowly break it over time. At the very least, ooh, he might act claiming the KO on the Zygarde. Nice, okay. Goodra claims the KO on Zygarde then, as Avalugg just wants to stay healthy for Gallade or Samu in the back. As now Valiant comes on in, who just claims the kill with Shadow Sneak. Okay. Now Life Orb. We see that is where he's at. I think this is still range of Shadow Sneak if you wanted to go for it. Going for Grassy Glide. Scarf Grassy Glide. I like the tech there. Well, I wouldn't even call that tech. That's just like being able to outspeed Valiant's priority. So I think it's pretty solid. As we see no boots on the Quagsire. Recover again. Again, I don't see anything that can break this Avalugg right now. Everything else is physical, really, so he's just hoping to get a Toxic off on it. Going for the Ice Punch on the Ogerpon did absolutely nothing. But damn, okay. Did not do much whatsoever, as now he just decides to sack the Rillaboom to Spikes. Overquill getting his Spikes, Spike stocks increased for sure. As now Ogerpon went for the SD, and will he win the speed tie? Going for the reverse Grassy Glide on the Mega Gallade. I am a big fan of that tech. That's pretty crazy. I love that. Okay. Alright. Going for the Sucker Punch on the Samu now, but I don't think anything is able to break the Avalugg, as well as beating the Valiant at this moment in time. So it kind of just depends if Quagsire can just win the stall match. Going for Moonblast, it's 73%, so that is definitely a no. So Patty claims the kill on Cran to get his second dub here in week 4. Pretty solid match overall. I do think that letting the special attackers that beat Avalugg go pretty early definitely wasn't the best move, I think. On top of that, too, not having any removal for any of the spikes, Overquill just kind of set those spikes up pretty easily, even if there was some poison type that was able to switch in and get rid of, at the bare minimum, the toxic spikes. I think that could have been really big in preventing the team from getting worn down into range of Iron Valiant and Avalugg, because despite everything, this was relatively close. Iron Valiant was definitely in some ranges if it was able to get outsped, and then Avalugg, if like Spectrier, for example, was still alive, would have been able to break through Iron Valiant and Lug pretty easily. So I do think this was relatively close, but just a couple of misplays or things that weren't brought that might have in retrospect been a little bit better, might have helped. But at the end of the day, solid match overall, everybody. So let's get right into the 5th match here in just a moment. Hey everybody, welcome to the 5th match, where we have Vinny End Dragon versus Ash Ice Claw. Pretty solid matchup. Overall, I do think that Haxorus has an amazing matchup here for sure. Clefable being his single switch into Dragon type moves, and everything else getting hit insanely hard neutrally, definitely is pretty rough, especially considering if he is bringing Unaware Clefable. Mold Breaker just breaks through that, so he has no reason to just not run a D-Dance or an SD set to just break through that thing with an Iron Head or a Poison Jab, something along those lines. And then on top of all that, having the regen stall core with Alomomola and Torn, I think this definitely poses a big threat for sure. And having 2 dual final Gambiters to knock out the stall core of like Clef or Gliscor, I think is pretty solid. And Vinny is, Toadscool, he kind of showed himself against Kenny last week, but I don't think it necessarily has the absolute best matchup here specifically, because yes, it can threaten Spores, but overall, I don't think Ash Ice really cares so much about getting spored right now. And then, like, it is a bit of removal for Clodsire, so that's a decent role that it can play, but I don't think it is the absolute end all be all. And at the end of the day, I do think that a Skeledirge maybe, or maybe even like a Steel type of some kind would have been bit better here. Like, I think Mega Aggron would have had a solid matchup here for sure, especially with a Curse variant. Would have been able to set up against the Haxorus or even in front of the Annihilate, and either force them to just keep clicking or swap. I do think Mega Aggron with Curse definitely had a really solid shout here. But overall, let's just see how these leads go. All right. So here we see Glamora lead versus Aselgor. Do we see the final gambit immediately? No, we see U-turn. as now the toxic debris comes up and Clodsire comes on in to get rid of the toxic spikes immediately. As then we see a meteor beam off rip into the Clodsire, and that did 19, kind of proving that it is unaware as it just increases its HP with Black Sludge. Now Gliscor comes on in on the predicted Earthquake as they instead set up Stealth Rock. That is pretty solid considering that Toedscool would have to come in and spin away those hazards, but could definitely get spin blocked by Annihilate. Aloe now gets knocked off, their Rocky Helmet is gone. That chip damage was negligible because of Poison Heal. Now we see Stealth Rock of Vinny's own, as now Aloe goes for a flip turn. If that was Ice Beam, that could have been pretty scary, as now Haxorus comes on in. So let's see what Vinny decides to do here. He could potentially Toxic this to get off a little bit of slowing it down, but instead goes for Knockoff, doing a solid chunk and getting rid of the Life Orb. But now, with it being at +2, nothing really likes to switch in here. Glamora comes on in to eat this Scale Shot. Okay, if this is a 2-hit, it lives, and it gets both of its T-Spikes up, but it does not, in fact, get the 2-hit. Now giving Haxorus the +1 speed. This is definitely pretty rough, as we see that this is likely now, yep, this is Choice Scarf. As now, Haxorus is pretty chipped down, but Earthquake is just gonna OHKO the Clefable. Okay, that, he just does not have much for this right now, as now the Haxorus is going to either be threatened out, okay, into the Clodsire. And let's see, going for the Volt Switch, which gets blocked by the Clodsire, and now we see that he is locked into it. So now he is forced to swap into Toedscool. Okay. Going into the Aloe immediately then. Likely going to try to Wish Pass up right away, taking advantage of this Toedscool's passivity, as now he has no reason to just hard switch immediately into Haxorus, but decides to stay in. Maybe that probably wouldn't have been what I personally would have done, but overall, this is definitely very spooky for Vinny for sure, because now this Aloe just sits in front of him, and he can kind of just get a Wish up for free, and go back into Haxorus. Yeah, Spore means that he is going to stay asleep, but Haxorus, yeah, is now back at full HP, and those 2 sacks on this thing were for nothing. Toxic on it does help slow it down a little bit, but now he is forced to switch into Gliscor and essentially trade this now from what it seems like. Scale Shot getting 3 hit, okay, a decent amount there for sure. And now he has that -1 defense, so I do believe this should hopefully be in range of an Earthquake now at this point. And now he's at 5, and that'll get knocked out by the Toxic. So Gliscor definitely did solid into checking this, but it did force the KOs on both Glamora and Clefable, as now the Acelgor comes on in and clicks Final Gambit. Personally, I think switching in Toedscool there would have been better, just because I think Acelgor Final Gambit's kind of its main gimmick, so I think it would have been pretty fair to assume that it was going for it. And now Annihilate is going to just be in here and click U-turn. Did not do much damage, but it does show Scarf, I believe, or at least heavily inclined to be Scarf. As now Toedscool is going to just eat up that Heat Wave and knock off Tornadus's Heavy Duty Boots. Pretty decent for neutralizing any Regenerator, but now Defog is going up, so losing those rocks means that knockoff was kind of for nothing, as now Extrasensory into the Clodsire does not do much damage at all, and now most of his damage dealers are like, not even his damage dealers, just any of his like potential momentum is just gone. As now Toedscool even goes down, the Goat into Iron Leaves now, which is likely just going to get, yep, Bleak-Winded. I would have thought U-turn would have been a little bit better, but going for Psyblade on the Torn does not really do enough. And now he's kind of forced to go into Raikou to eat this. Missed the Bleak-Wind, which is pretty solid. That's a pretty good good thing to happen there. As now Extrasensory does put this Annihilate in range of 2. So going to be forced to go back into Torn T, and taking 33. Okay, and now just going to be swapping between Aloe and Torn. As now, okay, going right into Iron Leaves then. Gonna try to force this thing to wake up, as now Torn is gonna come back in. Do they go for Psyblade again? No, going for Leaf Blade, which is 27%, not nearly enough. And now Raikou coming back in, can kind of only afford to click extra sensory here, as now Aloe comes back in. Going for Volt Switch, risking the Clodsire switch. Pretty solid, honestly. And now going back into Torn T, does he go for the Psyblade now? Yes, he does. Does he go for it again? No, he goes back right into Raikou. And the Bleak Wind does a fair chunk, but lowers the speed. So that means now that Annihilate will be able to outspeed. That speed lower is definitely pretty rough for sure, because now forcing it to swap there, letting Aloe get its regenerator back up, and Torn come right back in. Definitely very scary. Going for a Raikou on another double switch into Bleak Wind, and it gets the speed drop again. Really big rip for sure there. That's really sucky. I don't know if he would have been able to bring it back or not for sure, but that speed drop definitely completely invalidated it, as now Iron Leaves gets outsped by Torn, and Ash Ice claims the 4-0 dub against Vinny. Vinny going on a 2-0 on a 0-2 streak after going 2-0 in the first half of the season. This is kind of on brand for Vinny. He dominates in the first 2 weeks, loses in the next couple, and then he's just fighting neck and neck for the rest of the season. So I believe that he is going to be coming right back with a vengeance next week. So let's just see what the next match has in store in round 6. Alright everybody, welcome to the 6th match, where here we have Kenny versus Old Man. Honestly, I did help Kenny with some of the prep here, so I do have a little bit of spoilers when it comes to Kenny's team, but honestly, looking at it, okay, this is fairly similar to what I brought. Instead of Terrakion, I brought Garchomp into Kenny, and the team that I brought was sort of a beat-up Pheasantipity with Play Rough and U-Turn Pivoting and Roost. I brought a fully specially defensive Mega Blastoise with Scald, Ice Beam, Mirror Coat, and Rapid Spin. I brought a special Tangrowth with Knockoff alongside some Leech Seed and Toxic. So that's sort of what I brought with that. And then, of course, Zeraora, I brought an E-Belt Bulk Up set, and I brought Specs Darkrai. So I'm not 100% sure how different Old Man's team will differ from mine, but Kenny did a pretty solid job at handling it. Though I'm not sure how his team will be matching up into the Terrakion specifically, but generally I think he has a pretty good matchup here. I think Golden Ghost switches in pretty easily on the Terrakion. A coverage move, Earthquake, could be pretty risky, but overall I think Mega Diancie being able to check it offensively is good. Arbalava being able to live just about any hit, really, at least one hit, and then like Giga Drain or Leaf Storm or anything like that into it is solid. Great Tusk will be able to threaten it pretty heavily. Starmie will be able to threaten it. Golden Go, like I mentioned. Basically, everything threatens this Terrakion. I'm not sure what its set will be, but let's just get right into it and see. So here for the leads, we have Starmie versus Darkrai. Okay, not the best matchup for the lead for sure, as now switching into Diancie on the Dark Pulse. Does not do too much damage. Does a solid chunk, but not too much. As now Tangrowth comes on in. If I had to guess, that means that it will be Assault Vest, as now Kenny gets up his rocks. Arbalava coming back in to just tank a knockoff. Alright. As now we see that this was leftovers. I think he did swap it. I think he might have been originally Eject Pack. As now he gets the turn 1 Sludge Bomb Poison, that's really rough, as we see that this is likely specially defensive with an Assault Vest now, because that did 0 damage. But going for Strength Sap on this, and getting all the way back up to full pretty much after Poison Chip, of course. But now going to swap into Zapdos, hoping to get a para off with this knockoff, critting the knockoff. Though I don't think it matters too much, but it's still kind of sad. Is now going into Zeraora, likely, okay, going for the Volt Switch rather than Heat Wave. He used to always call me out on those Heat Waves, so clearly he is second guessing himself in this matchup specifically. As now Arboliva comes on in, as now Zeraora goes for Substitute. This is still fine because Alluring Voice does go through the Substitute, but now going for a Calm Mind set. Interesting for sure. If he went for Alluring Voice there, he would have poisoned. He not only would have went through the Substitute, but he also would have been able to confuse the Zeraora. As now Alluring Voice is going off, I do think he should Tera here. I think Tera Fairy here is a really solid option. Yep, going for it again, and now confusing the Zera. It is leftovers, but I don't think he is able to reliably heal himself outside of that. As now he brings in Great Tusk and just absolutely soaking up a Thunderbolt. I'm not sure what coverage moves this thing has for the Great Tusk, but this might be able to just going for Toxic. So it's just Toxic Calm Mind Substitute with Thunderbolt. Interesting. No moves to hit Great Tusk outside of just Toxicking it. Going for Headlong into the Tangrowth. Doing a bit, but not too much. As now Arboliva comes back in. Into Sludge Bomb, predicting it. Wow, okay. Honestly, pretty good, pretty easy predict, not gonna lie. Great Tusk never should have stayed in there, so I think that is solid. As now Zapdos gets poisoned as well. Poor Kenny is getting absolutely hacked with all these. Now Terrakion coming on out. Let's see, going for Roost. This is one of the better Mons to for Terrakion here. And I do think Great Tusk, okay, Starmie. I think this is physically defensive Starmie if I remember. Ooh, that Stone Edge did do a fat chunk. Let's see, now bring in Blastoise, likely going to Rapid Spin if I had to guess. Does he get the Burn with Scald here? He does not. He is not getting any of the same RNG here. And now Mega Diancie coming on in. Going for the Mega and Water Pulse to just KO. That kind of sucks. But now going for Zapdos, likely going to Thunderbolt or Volt Switch here. And missing a Hurricane on top of that, dude. Wow. This RNG is not in Kenny's favor whatsoever. Going for Volt Switch, as now Golden Go comes on in. I do think Golden Go still has a very solid matchup here, as Fez goes for Calm Mind. Okay, what can he go for? Going for Shadow Ball does not do much. But we do see that Golden Go is in fact faster. So this is likely bulky Fez, or just a very a very especially attacking Fez, though it doesn't do much damage, so this is likely just bulky Calm Mind if I had to guess. Going for okay, I see the vision here, trying to bait out some low rolls, but he is also baiting out special defense drops, so I don't think that is the safest option for sure. But it seems to be working, at least for now. Okay, going for another Shadow Ball, which low rolls, but does get the Spadef drop. I don't know how much that'll end up mattering. That did KO the Fez. I don't remember if that was a roll or not, but now Darkrai comes on in. Great Tusk likely will be able to eat at least one. Ooh, that did a chunk. But this, from what I remember, this is Scarf Great Tusk. So does he just go for... Yes, he does go for the big damage. Does he just go for it again, risking the low roll? He does not. He instead goes into Zapdos. Very few switch-ins to this Zapdos right now. If he decides to go for Heat Wave, I think that could be pretty solid. Hurricane here would have been fine too. Going for Roost. Pretty solid idea, making sure that this thing stays healthy. But what does he go into now? Golden Go. Will he be able to... Okay, I was gonna ask if he was able to eat too, but should still be okay. As now this Zapdos comes on in on an Earthquake. Maybe gonna try to go for Defog. Oh, getting outsped and just KO'd by the Stone Edge. He was really hoping for that miss at that point. Going for another Great Tusk here. Does he just click? Yes, he does click Close Combat, killing the Terrakion. Should be able to get at least one more off. Does he just go for the KO? This might be able to kill depending on investment, and that does 55 to this Blastoise. So that was either a low roll or this thing is decently invested, if I had to guess. Going for Golden Go now. And now Shadow Ball claiming the kill. Does this... And now Darkrai likely comes on in. This Arboliva, if it was Terra Fairy, it might be decent, but... Oh... Okay, the Colbur Berry does not save the Golden Go. And now Arboliva comes on in and Darkrai just cleans here. Man, that's rough for sure. Not getting any of the burns or anything like that. Missing the Hurricanes. I don't know how much it would have changed the outcome at the end, because at the end of the day, like, he still has half his team at least at half HP. So I'm not sure how much that all ended up mattering, but definitely the RNG in his favor was pretty rough for Kenny. Getting all those poisons with Sludge Bomb, getting a few of those crits, a few of those misses, definitely really, really rough and put Kenny on the back foot for sure. But Old Man claims his dub and Kenny sadly loses, but let's see how the 7th match goes here in just a moment. All right, everybody, welcome to the 7th match where we have Justin versus Iger. Okay, Iger is coming off of a big win last week against Vinny. So, okay, I am looking here. Scolipede has an amazing matchup here. I can't even lie. With Protect being able to give it speed boost to hopefully be... Actually, wait, no. Mega Zam is kind of a hard counter to this thing because it will always be able to trace a speed boost. Okay, so that is definitely interesting for sure. Scolipede has to be already pretty boosted in order to beat Mega Zam. Other than that, though, with the standard SD set with P-Jab, Mega Horn, and EQ, kind of just runs through most of Justin's team. If he can handle Mega Zam before Scolipede gets set up, or if Scolipede is already set up before Zam comes on in, genuinely, Iger has a chance to just run away with it with only Scolipede. But even outside of that, like I said, Zam has a pretty scary matchup here, especially when you consider the fact that Zam could copy a Regenerator on Hydrapple, which then gives it a little bit more HP upon switch out, though it does need to apply it later down the line. It can also copy that speed boost, like I mentioned before. Mega Zam, I think is a fraud, but generally I think it has a pretty good matchup here. AV Metagross might be able to handle it decently enough. Not 100% sure about that. The solid Pecharunt Ting-Lu core will be very hard to break, though I do suspect that Hydrapple might be able to handle it decently enough with like Earth Power for Pecharunt and Giga Drain, of course, for Ting-Lu. So I do think that Iger generally has a bit of a better matchup, especially when you account for webs on his team and having no removal on Justin's side. I do think that Iger could claim his dub here, though at the end of the day, Justin's Ting-Lu Pecharunt core alongside Mega Zam is always very scary. So let's just get right into it and see how it goes. So for the leads, we have Cornerstone versus Swampert. Okay. Just going for the hard swap into Hydrapple. Does he go for the grass type move? No, goes for knockoff, knocking off the Rocky Helmet. That does break the Sturdy, which is a solid enough play. As he goes for the spikes, that did nothing on that Ogerpon. Wow. that must be either no investment on Hydrapple or a very specially defensive Ogerpon, as Fickle Beam limply hits Tinglu, as now Hydrapple goes for Nasty Plot. Okay, I could see a world where where Hydrapple is just a no special attack investment, all bulk set with Nasty Plot. Could be pretty spooky, as Tinglu goes for the Whirlwind. Okay, getting rid of those boosts. And now Metagross comes on in, and I also noticed Iger has no removal on his side right now. That is definitely pretty rough for sure, because now these hazards are going to be really scary to deal with. Hydrapple likely going to try to go for a Giga Drain or a Nasty Plot again. Alcremie comes on in, as this is Justin's Tera Captain. Giga Drain doing a solid amount, all things considered, to the Alcremie. Does it just go for the Calm Mind immediately? Yes, as now both sides are setting up. Will Iger be able to break through this Alcremie, or will Alcremie be able to break through the Hydrapple first? I guess we'll only be able to find out and see. Ooh, well, I think that answers that, folks. Now forcing the swap into Metagross. I know this thing has the Tera Ground, so I do think Tera Ground might be able to... Oh, Tera Steel instead. Okay. It does take... it does lose its lefties, which is rough. Ooh, the Acid Armor too. Alcremie might get the 6-0 sweep here. It all depends on if this Swampert... No, even if that was Roar Swampert, that did not kill. Or that did kill. Now, Silvally Dark, that's going to get... Okay, getting rid of the Defog. I did forget Silvally got Defog. But now... Ooh, that did not kill. Interesting. Okay, so that's very specially defensive, if I had to guess. That's at +2, plus stab. Either that or Alcremie is like no special attack investment, which I can also see. Metagross comes on in. Does this thing have a fighting type move? No, it does not. As stored power, that was a crit and it did 29%. I do think just going for more boosts here and then just clicking, and then clicking Acid Armor is not Acid Armor, Draining Kiss is probably the best option here. I do think Justin just straight up wins here now with this Alcremie. This thing could not be broken by anything. Wow. And I didn't even mention this thing in the pregame. Wow, okay. Alright, yeah, this thing just straight up wins here now. Ooh, that was... Actually, I was overestimating this Alcremie's bulk. That nearly died. Now, Hydrapple, does this outspeed? Yes, it does, okay. I do think it is still over, but the Alcremie does not claim the 6-0 sweep. Pecharunt now comes on in and goes for the Maligi Chain. And murders the Hydrapple. It's now probably killing the Ribombee as well. It's probably Focus Sash. Maybe. Does this thing live? It does live. We don't see the Malignant Chain. Psychic does not kill though. Damn, rough one there. But hey, really good match overall. The Alcremie was incredible here. It put in super insane work. Maybe if he went into the Scolipede earlier, maybe he would have been able to weaken that thing down with Earthquake and then revenge kill it after the fact. I do think getting rid of the leftovers is very important with Metagross, so I think that was fine, as well as the getting rid of all the hazards with Silvally. But I do think that Scolipede probably should have came in earlier. I think bringing Swampert in and sacking that, I think that was a bit of a misplay. Also, same with the Hydrapple came in later afterwards. But I do think at the very least, Iger could have had a little bit more help if that Scolipede was able to come in earlier and Earthquake that thing down. But hey, very good match on both sides overall. And let's get into the final week here in just a moment. All right, everybody, welcome to the final match where we have Forza versus Victory Stars. We see a Regigigas on Forza's side, so that is definitely A little unconventional. I wouldn't say that this was particularly an amazing week for Regigigas, to be honest. But hey, I respect the tech. I respect it. If this thing ends up coming back and sweeping, I will eat my words. But I also think that Forza is a little bit of at a disadvantage here. I think Nidoqueen has very good defensive utility into Sneasler. Not really being able to hit it for super effective damage with anything. It might get Psycho Cut. I don't fully remember. But generally, I don't think that the Sneasler can break through Nidoqueen. And I can kind of say that for most of the team. Aside from Rotom Wash, nothing really likes being able to break Nidoqueen. So unless Rotom Wash is able to break that thing, I think this thing has a chance to just wall most things. Chi-Yu does pretty decently here, though it does get hard walled by Primarina. So I do think it can't really be just an all-out offensive set. I think it has to either be a setup variant or a variant with Ruination to possibly weaken it down for Sneasler or even like Rotom or Celesteela. Steela, I think, has a decent matchup. It does wall Nidoqueen if it's an offensive version, as well as at generally handling Reuniclus decently well. But then we see the Victini coming in, and I don't know. I think there's always just one thing on Victory Stars' team that hard walls one of Forza's big main threats. And overall, I think that Forza kind of struggles to break Victory Stars mainly. And then Stars has a decently good matchup offensively into him as well. I think Victini has a pretty solid shot um, with its wide coverage range. I do think it has a chance to break a solid amount of the team. Primarina doesn't really have that many amazing resists. Rotom Wash being the only water resist means that's kind of forced to come in, and if it eats too many moon blasts, I think that could weaken it down quite a bit and open up some other mons on the team. Meowscarada does pretty decently, though it has to be afraid of Sneasler. And Skarmory, outside of Chi-Yu, I think does wall most of the team decently hard, outside of like Chi-Yu and Rotom Wash, like I was saying. Overall, I do think that Stars has a bit of an edge here, though I have seen Forza cook up some wild things before and eke out dubs. So let's see how this all goes. All right, let's see. Now we see Frostlass and Nidoqueen. Okay. Do we see the... No, we don't see the hard switch immediately as Flamethrower fails to kill, as now spikes go up. There is defog on Skarmory, but other than that, there is no removal. And now we see a Chi-Yu switch as Meowscarada comes in. This thing now goes for U-turn. As we see, 49%. I don't think that is banded, though it very well could be. And okay. And that's definitely not Spec, so it could be Scarf, as Meowscarada could be Scarf to outspeed it. And now we see Draining Kiss Primarina. Do we see leftovers? No leftovers. This could be Assault Vest. That is 1000% Assault Vest. As Celesteela now comes in. Energy Ball does negative damage here. And Seed Bomb claims the kill on Prima. Wow, okay. As we see a special attack, Celesteela with Seed Bomb. Interesting. As now Rotom Wash comes in on the Victini. Does a fat chunk on the switch. That might be a range to kill, but Meowscarada just comes in instead to eat the Volt Switch, getting a little bit of momentum off. The Sneasler come on in. No, we see the Regigigas. Is it going for Protect immediately? Tera Poison, okay. And no Protect either. Doing 9%. I suspect that's Scarf. As now we see Ryun come on in, as this thing is now going for Power Up Punch, but this is a Psychic type, so kind of force the switch and lose your slow start. Yeah, because that's not going to do much damage. Going for Calm Mind, okay. Giving this thing an extra turn. And we don't see leftovers on the Gigas either. Going for Psyshock, barely not killing the Regigigas. Slow start is still never going away. The crit EQ, putting it into range of basically anything. Who would have thought that Regigigas would have been able to take on the Ryun here? As now we see Chi-Yu come on in. And now that Prima is dead, no real switch-ins here. And we see Flamethrower. And, okay, Victini can still come in and eat a Flamethrower pretty decently. Or Nidoqueen, to be honest. If this is especially a defensive Nidoqueen, yeah, 100% that works. Going for Earth Power on the Rotom switch. And I think this is just a free Hydro now. Nothing to resist this. I think Prima going down was huge. Okay, just going for Volt Switch, keeping up the momentum. I think that or Hydro Pump was honestly fair. And going for Dark Pulse, okay. And hell yeah, okay. Is this Scarfed? This might be a speed tie. Okay, no, just going to sack this just to see. As now this goes for U-turn. Actually, wait. No, we see this as Boots. So if this Chi-Yu is Scarfed, then that is a free Dark Pulse. Now the Sneasler comes on in, goes for U-turn. That's 14. That might be Scarfed. Celesteela coming on in, not really enjoying that Flamethrower at all. As now Earthquake claims the KO on Nidoqueen. I do think Forza is in a position to win here for sure. Those, I will say, the switch-ins to Victini are dwindling. As now I think Rotom Wash is forced to go down here. Unless this is magically Scarfed. Nope, going for the V-Create. Oh, the V-Create Gambit. Does this kill Chi-Yu? Actually, wait, no, this is minus speed, so I think that he should... Ooh, does he just... And he claims the kill! Victini bringing it back. Alright. Okay, but going for U-turn on the kill. Okay. Oh, Ryun is back up because we see this is Regenerator as now going for Brutal Swing and misses the Focus Blast. That is rough. I do think that mattered. That Brutal Swing now. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that really fully mattered. It all depended if this Ryun was able to claim the kill. Kind of rough, but at the same time, that Victini brought it back. That was really close for sure. This going to a 1-0 dub to Forza. Forza's been killing it this season. Bringing the Regigigas, answering a decent amount of the Ryun, bringing it down to half. Though, to be honest, with it being Regenerator, it didn't really do much. I do think that Regigigas could have been swapped, but hey, he did his role, I guess. And then the rest of the team, I do think that probably the biggest thing I would say about this battle was the Primarina going down as early as it did. I imagine, of course, he probably wasn't expecting the physical Seed Bomb on Celesteela. I definitely wasn't expecting the special attack boosting Beast Boost with the physical Celesteela. I don't know what the EVs are looking like, but that is definitely a pretty comical thing for me. Um, so I could see the vision, like not fully seeing the seed bomb there, especially not killing the Primarina. Though if it is very specially defensive, I probably would have wanted to swap that into Skarmory. I think that was a pretty easy switch. So that was probably like the main thing that put Stars behind, if I had to guess, because Prima hardwalled, well, maybe not Sneasler, but hardwalled Chi-Yu, who really threatened Stars in the late game, as you saw. Decently answered Celesteela defensively. At least was able to get chip off on it before going down to Seed Bomb. If, of course, Celesteela was weakened a bit more. Um, a better switch into Regigigas instead of letting Ryun have to take care of it. All that sort of thing, and even being a decent enough switch into Rotom Wash, because we saw that that was not offensive, and Volt Switch was not really doing too much to the especially defensive AV Primarina. So I do think that that thing going down as early as it was probably is what sealed the deal in the end game. I don't think it would have helped against the Sneasler specifically, though it would have just helped add a little bit more HP to some of Victory Stars' other threats that would have then been able to handle Sneasler a little bit better. But otherwise, guys, that is it for week 3 of the MMC Pokemon Draft League. I hope you all enjoyed as much as I did. Don't forget to drop a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 250 subscribers, and you all can help me get there. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.